Broadcasting from the heart of rural America in downtown beautiful St. Joseph, Missouri, this is Angus Talk. I'm Doug Medlock. We're bringing you the latest and greatest in cattle business today. Thanks for listening. Joining us in the studio is Dr. Dave Patterson from the University of Missouri. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning. How are you?
Great. Thanks for coming in. We're glad you're here. You're doing a lot of work with the Show Me Select Heifer program here in Missouri. Tell us about that and what you're learning.
The Show Me Select program is basically an on-farm heifer development, management, and marketing program that we piloted in 2 regions in Missouri back in the beginning in the fall of 1996. But the program essentially is aimed at a number of things, creating a health platform for those heifers to set them up for long-term reproductive success. And then there's checkpoints along the way from that time point forward during that post-weaning to pre-breeding phase. Heifers are evaluated in terms of pre-breeding exams prior to the first breeding season, which includes a weight of the heifer and then a reproductive tract score. In addition to that, a pelvic exam. The reproductive tract scores have been very useful from the standpoint of evaluating where those heifers are at in terms of reproductive development. And I guess because of using that tool as an assessment as to how well those heifers have been developed, we now have a number of producers that are using synchronization and AI programs to really add value, not only in terms of the genetic equity of those the heifers going back into their herds, but also utilizing it as an opportunity to add value to heifers they may be marketing in terms of the pregnancies they're carrying. From that point forward, then the additional, intervention points would be we require that an early pregnancy diagnosis be performed on the heifers within 90 days of the start of the breeding season. In most cases now, those exams are being done with the aid of ultrasound to improve the accuracy and of those exams and established more definitively when those heifers actually became pregnant. That in large part is being driven by producers because of the improved accuracy that we see with the use of ultrasound, and what we see more importantly, I guess, from the standpoint of marketing of those heifers. Heifers that are actually going through our sales that are carrying AI-sired pregnancies, we're seeing an added a price differential on those heifers of anywhere from $100 to $120 or more over those that are carrying natural service-sired pregnancies.
Wow.
So there really is an opportunity to create and add value.
Within the program, are you seeing a shift away from crossbreeding to more straight bred of Angus?
I think in part, the northern part of Missouri, we see a significant number of straight bred Angus heifers going through the program. We still see some differences relative to breed and breed crosses in the southern part of the state. But I think one of the things that has driven that to a large extent is just the marketing opportunities relative to those heifers and and their progeny, and the price differentials that we're seeing for those heifers in many of our sales. Very definitely, roughly in terms of our database, about 65% of the heifers in our program currently are either Angus or Angus Cross. And then in large part, I think relative to the service sires for those heifers in terms of the pregnancies they're carrying, I think the database would support the fact that we're at nearly 90% of the heifers are being then bred back to either Angus sires naturally or artificially.
We're talking with Dr. David Patterson of the University of Missouri on Angus Talk.
It's time to revive rural America, to help our small-town communities move forward, to keep our farms and ranches on a path of prosperity. That's what the Angus Foundation is all about. Each year, we work hard to help kids attend college, providing scholarships to tomorrow's leaders. We invest in research that's critical to our livelihood. And we create educational opportunities for America's cattle producers, ensuring their continued professional development. Won't you help us? Contact the Angus Foundation today.
You're listening to Angus Talk, brought to you by the American Angus Association. We're speaking with Dr. Dave Patterson of the University of Missouri. We were talking about crossbreeding versus a straight-bred Angus program and how you're seeing an uptick in Angus across the board. And a lot of that is due to value-added marketing, right? Can you tell us about that?
one of the projects that we were successful in getting funded was more or less taking the information that's available, i.e. Fixed time AI, and combining high accuracy genetics with it, and to really demonstrate what can be accomplished relative to not only adding value to the heifers, but also adding value to their steer mates. And so, actually, in collaboration with the American Angus Association, we created what is now referred to as Tier 2 in the program, which really creates an opportunity to add or develop more genetic equity in the heifers themselves, add value to those heifers based on the accuracies for several traits of economic importance for those heifers in terms of the sires of those heifers. And those traits include calving ease direct, calving ease maternal, weaning weight, carcass weight, and marbling. And so at the time of sales, at the sales in our program, if those heifer sires meet minimum accuracies for those traits, then they're distinguished in the program as Tier 2s. What that's led to, because that aspect of the program is relatively new, the sales data would indicate that if you compare a Tier 2 replacement that's carrying an AI sired pregnancy over a heifer that's a standard Show Me Select heifer in our program that's carrying a natural service sired pregnancy, we're adding just under $300
wow.
Per heifer to each of those females. And so the whole concept of quality is being advanced on the female side from that aspect. But the interesting thing, what we're seeing relative to that with our own research herds, is that I work very closely with the University of Missouri Thompson Research Center in North Missouri, and we've tracked performance of the steer mates to these heifers. And if you look at our percent prime out of the high accuracy sired steers at Thompson, this past year we had 30% of the carcasses grade prime, and roughly about 55 to 60% qualify for CAB. So in other words, roughly 89% of those high accuracy sired steers were either CAB or prime. And so therein lies an opportunity, because of the premiums that are afforded relative to CAB and prime, to add significant value to the steer mates of those heifers. So,
well, and it only makes sense to make as much as you can off what you got.
Exactly.
So when you talk about AI, artificial insemination, not something used across the board, why do you recommend that for breeders? What's
changed things remarkably in the last more or less 5 to 10 years is the fact with the development and growing implementation of timed AI, and I would say that we have significant use of it here in Missouri. It affords producers the opportunity to schedule, so they don't have to heat detect. They don't have to, sort cattle based on observed heat. More or less, everything gets done to the same group of cows or heifers on a given day, which I can determine a year from now the day that I want to breed my cows and the time I want to breed them on. And so it's a tremendous tool for producers to begin considering using. But then when you begin combining that with careful and more disciplined sire selection relative to bulls that are going to be used in those programs, the progress that you can make, in a much shorter time period relative to adding value and improving quality is no small thing. And so we have tools that are right now more or less sitting on the shelf that beef producers across the United States really need to begin to consider much more seriously. And the reason for that is that producers are going to have to become much more business conscious relative to opportunities to add value.
And is this something that affects small producers as well as large ranchers?
Absolutely. I mean, if we use the heifer program as an example, one of the challenges a lot of smaller herd owners in Missouri and across the country have is doing a good job relative to heifer development, but then also managing those females as a separate breeding group going into that first breeding season. And so what's occurred relative to what we've seen over the years in terms of the heifer program in Missouri is that we now have numbers of herds that source their replacements entirely out of the Show Me Select program. It eliminates the need for those producers to try and add that additional challenge to their operation. And at the same time, it gives them the opportunity to more or less make more rapid strides in terms of the genetic improvement of the cows that are going in, or females that are going into their herd.
And it used to be, as you talk about better cattle, it used to be all about how many pounds you could produce, but now adding value through quality and consistency helps out the average producer.
Globally, I think producers in the United States have to think longer term relative to where the niche for the U.S. cattle industry is going to be on a global basis. And currently, 82 to 84% of the high quality product that's produced on the global market is produced here in the United States. At the recent NCBA meetings this past winter in Nashville, the CattleFax data indicated that roughly $260 is being added to every carcass produced in the United States because of the export market. That's significant from the standpoint of, first, the opportunity to add value to beef cattle produced here in this country, but it's also important from the standpoint of the type of cattle that export market wants or is demanding is really the higher quality product. And so therein lies the opportunity for producers to really take advantage of that. But at the same time, if you look at increased demand for product, higher quality product, such as certified Angus beef here in the United States, producers need to focus longer term on where they're at currently and how they need to position themselves longer term to really set themselves up to where they can capture or be a part of that opportunity to create and capture added value.
We've been talking with Dr. Dave Patterson of the University of Missouri. Thanks for joining us, Dave. Angus Talk is brought to you by the Angus Foundation, promoting education, youth, and research. Donate today by visiting angusfoundation.org. You can also find everything you ever wanted about Angus cattle by visiting angus.org. Sale calendars, sale reports, sale books, you name it. It's all there if you want to buy Angus cattle. I'm Doug Medlock. Thanks for listening to Angus Talk.